In May of 2014, College of William & Mary sent some graduate students from the School of Education to Milan, Padua, and Rome for an Italian short-term study abroad session. While they were there, they did some projects to better get to know the country and the students and the education there. Summer Noggle and Will Taylor interviewed a total of 6 students, 3 American, 3 Italian, 4 who had studied abroad, and 2 who had not previously. We also interviewed 2 Italian study abroad administrators. During these interviews, we attempted to gain a deeper understanding of study abroad perspectives between the 2 countries, as well as of the individuals themselves. This video is a compilation of clips of those interviews in order to demonstrate some of those thoughts in a more compact fashion. The full video is also available upon request. Every single person we talked to had a very positive idea of study abroad and thought that more students should take advantage of it, and other opportunities to get outside of their comfort zone generally. While there were some differences between the different countries and individuals, of course, I'll let them share their opinions personally.
Everything that you could possibly imagine, everything from the educational component to the educational system to the cultural aspect, language of course. It gave me a much broader way of thinking. It changed my it was transformational for me. I was and I will never be the same again. It was that transformative, and I highly recommend it for anyone.
Aprendí otro sistema.
She learned another educational
de
system.
trabajo.
Oh, work system.
Para mí, personalmente, de ir más allá de mi país.
She said she learned to go beyond her country.
Y que puedo organizar y crear mis oportunidades en la vida.
Organize and create her own opportunities in life.
Y he aprendido otras culturas, otras maneras de ver las
other
cosas.
cultures and other ways of seeing things.
Just to be patient, assumptions that you have about certain cultures, like for instance going to Denmark thinking, oh, they speak English pretty fluently, they must have a similar culture, blonde hair, blue eyes. In fact, reality, that was not the case. But yeah, just being open to new experiences, being able to adapt and go with the flow when things can't always or don't always go as planned. Just, being smart.
I learned a bit English, even if maybe it's not there, okay? And it was a big experience because when I know so many people of other countries, and it was an occasion to live another life, because you are another life, another place, another people with you live, another teachers, another university, and you have to try to create something before the travel. There is a stereotype about Erasmus, that you do everything that you don't do in your country, something like that. And before this, I thought, but no, why I have to change my way of for this month? I'm myself, and in this way. Instead, I try to do something maybe that I don't do here, to try even different way to live, a different way of France, even if it's for 5 months. And in this way I saw some part of myself that I like, that is in Italy, that is in this way and is perfect for me, and something that I know that maybe I can change something. So yes, it was good even for this.
I have just loved the whole experience. It's been more sort of personally reflective for me than professional. I mean, the professional opportunities are great, but because it was such a big leap to go from not traveling at all to coming to Italy, and I don't know, I think it's awesome. I don't want to leave. I want to stay here. I am really proud of myself for going on like adventures by myself. I think I've been pretty chill and mellow throughout all of the things that have happened. And I think it's more like formative assessment. Like there was a period of time where I would have been so rung up about my luggage being lost and so just stressed out and worried about what are we doing next and what time do we have to be. And I'm not like that anymore. So to me, that's useful data to know that I am a different, more chill, more centered human being than I was like probably 3 or 4 years ago. So that has been most meaningful to me just because, I don't know, I think that makes me a better counselor, that I don't worry about little things and that I don't spin things in my head like worst case scenario automatically.
One of the most important things is that we as Americans can go out and we can see us from a completely different lens. If we don't go out, we will never be able to see us as Americans and our culture from an outside perspective. And I think that when you do that, you learn valuable lessons, not just at that time, but as a whole in life. And keep in mind that when we're in college, we're, in our early 20s. And so when you think about 40, 50 years down the road, it really does impact how you think. And thinking is one of the primary reasons why we go to college and why we become educated citizens. And so it's important that we get that experience because it can be so beneficial to our contributions in our own society, because we can see things from a global perspective, something that we otherwise wouldn't be able to do.
Para liberarse, o sea, abrirse al mundo.
To liberate themselves or to open themselves out to the world.
Aprender a ver las cosas segundo otras perspectivas.
To learn different perspectives, to see things from different perspectives.
Otro sistema de hacer las cosas.
Another system, another way of doing things.
Cambiar las ideas.
Change your ideas.
Poderse acercar a los problemas.
Get closer to problems, see them differently, approach them differently.
I think it gives you just a different perspective, not only on the U.S., but the world in general. We talk about globalization and internationalization all the time, but we only get such a small glimpse of that in the States. And again, with the assumptions about other cultures and understandings of different systems of like government and families and everything, it's really something you have to be able to experience firsthand to really understand and have that true openness to.
I think it's very important if a student have the possibility, because it can open your mind, not only in the field of the study, but also for the ordinary life, for the life of every day. They can get the possibility to solve some difficulties or to explore their sources. I think he can learn other possibilities, other ways to study. I think foreign students can explain to the student other ways to study or to other field of study. There are some things that are important in a country, but not in your country. And so, if you go abroad, you can know these other field of study, these other difficulties that the life and the study.
To know another style of life, to know other country, other culture, and to know other people with other use, other yes. So even also only for this is great.
Self-efficacy in being able to tolerate ambiguity and being uncomfortable and really being dependent on like survival skills, especially somewhere like this where, I mean, we don't speak Italian, so we have to have humility, cultural humility, but actual human being humility to be able to get where we need to go and to be, you know, gracious in that. And I think that's something that sometimes we as Americans lack. So I think that it can be a really good way to keep people sort of grounded, especially students who may not have ever been in an environment where they struggle, you know. So. There is, in the field of cognitive development, the concept that support, challenge, and reflection can promote cognitive complexity, and that's important to counselors and loud people. But it's important to counselors because cognitive complexity means that you're able to work with diverse populations and to be able to take their perspective better. And this has been the perfect balance. I mean, the challenge, I have no idea where, you know, like get on an airplane, trust that you're going to get there, trust that the things that are going to go the way they need to do. And the support has really been, I mean, we as a unit have supported one another. We've been a pretty cohesive group. And then the opportunities for reflection, like even this interview is like an opportunity for me to reflect. But the reflections that we have that are written, just talking about things, like going out to get gelato and like talking about the experience. I think that for me personally, it's been transformative, but I think professionally, like overall for anyone with those pieces very intentionally attended to, it has a really big potential to impact counselor development specifically.
Some of the most immediate benefits are being able to see that the world is not limited to one's own backyard, that there's a great deal of variety in cultures, but you know, it's not even just limited to going to another country. In some cases, Italy, for example, is a very diverse country in of itself, and just going from north to south, it could consider, for a northerner, a huge culture shock, just going down to the other end of the boot, so to speak. So when you think of these challenges on a global scale and the significance that it can have in understanding someone else, but understanding other cultures, where other people come from, but I think one of the most important benefit is getting a better understanding of one's own culture, background, and identity. And we see that also confirmed from our student feedback, that they realize that they have found out a whole lot more about themselves by being surrounded and having to interact with someone who's different from them. Independence, yes, they can do it, they can find that out staying in the home country, but I think it's a whole different level of autonomy, independence, and growth that, being in an environment that's so familiar, they keep being, I wouldn't say sheltered, but you can't really understand what it means to be really on your own, having to figure things out on your own, and taking charge of your own life and understanding what it means to deal with consequences to one's own decisions. That it's just everything that one does abroad can also learn locally, but it's just amplified. And so the change in one person, what we see with students going abroad, what you would see in terms of growth, individual growth in someone in 3 years staying home can actually happen with another student in 3 months being abroad. So I think it's just the faster pace of learning and having to grow and find maturity and again going back to knowing oneself, one's own limits, etc., which I think at some point everybody needs to figure out.
the ability to understand where you are. Communicating maybe is the next step. But maybe the very first one is, okay, where am I? What's happening around me? So maybe this is the very first impact of being in a very different cultural context. But besides that, probably the strongest impact is when I find myself in a totally different situation where I do not really know anybody, and I see things around me that I do not recognize immediately. But then, of course, that's why, for instance, having a buddy when you arrive in a place, it's so important, because it's the very first contact with the local culture, but not as a huge or anonymous impact. It's just one person, and moreover is your buddy or your tutor. So this is a very effective way to facilitate maybe not integration, but I would say the smooth crossing of this new territory. And well, of course, love affairs are very important. That's why many times the first impact when you reach a new place, a new territory, is to find a boyfriend or a girlfriend, because it's easy. You're like some way adopted, and then it gets easier and easier to get involved.
One, I learned that it was a possibility, and I can tell you exactly. I was in 5th grade when I opened up a book, and I originally wanted to go to France, right? I still have the flag that I made. I didn't make it, my aunt made it, but I still have that flag back in California. So my original intent was France, but I never learned French. So, hey, picked a neighboring country, Spain. And yes, I from the 5th grade, I knew that I wanted to travel. I remember my teacher.
One to have the opportunity to do so at a more affordable cost, and there's only so many chances in your life that you're going to be able to get up and go to Europe like that. So, and my mom had always strongly encouraged me to do so.
I'm studying psychology here, and I would like to improve the intercultural psychology. And here there are many Romanian migrants, so to understand better or to know something more about language or culture, I thought, okay, there I can try to improve a bit English, because there I have to talk in English, but in this way I have even an occasion to know something more about this state.
When I came to the PhD program, I said that I would take every opportunity I had to do something I've never done before. And so they were talking about Italy, and at that point Dr. Foster was also supposed to be coming. I was like, yeah, let's go. Like, not really playing it out in my head what it would entail. I'm like, yeah, let's go. So I paid my money, and then I'm like, oh shit, I'm going to Italy. It really was just, I don't know. The counseling program is structured to be personally transformative and professionally transformative. And so I think that I saw this as an opportunity to really grow personally and professionally. It wasn't really something that I had access to. I mean, I guess I probably did, but I didn't know it. I lived with my parents for most of undergrad. I worked 30 hours a week. I took 5 classes a semester. So I was trying to get out of school, but doing fun things was not an option. I didn't live in the residence halls. I didn't have any friends on campus, so I didn't feel really connected to the culture. And honestly, I probably would have been too scared to get on an airplane anyway. So it was not even on my radar or something I needed.
Yeah, in the years where I started to study, I was thinking to the possibility, to the beauty. I was thinking that it would be a good thing, but I started at 25 years. I had the work. So, okay, but if I wanted,
But you'd like to.
I like.
My attempt would be not only the ability to communicate, but to understand and to be empathic to the people, respectful to the culture, and the desire to want to know about the different regions, because the people are not all the same in any particular country. Being here in Italy, we've learned that, and it happens the same in Spain. It's a very regional country, one in which even languages differ, history differs. And so it's important for us when we visit the country to know that we are no longer in our space, that we are in someone else's space, and that we actually, one, be very respectful, try to learn the culture, the language, the customs, its history, because that's what makes the experience that much more enriching. So that's probably the best attempt to expand upon that definition.
O sea, yo la interpreto mucho como
She
he
interprets this
aprendido
as
a pensar
I've learned how
misma palabra o mismo concepto
to learn a word or a
en diferentes
concept
maneras.
from different perspectives in different ways.
Y he aprendido a
And
interpretar
she's learned how
lo
to
que los
interpret
otros
that,
querían decir
interpret what others have been wanting to say,
segundo el
depending
contexto
upon
cultural.
within the cultural context.
I think it's one of those things where no matter how you try to define it, you'll never really get a 100% coverage definition. I think it does involve understanding and effective communication, but there's so much more than that, because at the end of the day, as much as you try to understand someone else's culture and experiences, at the end of the day, they are their culture and their experiences, and you're really only going to have an outside perspective based on your own experiences. So I would say intercultural competency is really just a willingness to be understanding and work together, as well as an openness to different, diverse cultures and etc.
To me, it really relates to the concept of respect for diversity that we have in counseling. And I see it not so much as communicating, but being able to sit in someone else's place. To be able to take the perspective without judgment of someone that's different. And here the differences are, not just intrinsic, but they're also very clearly, different countries, different continents. But to me, it is just generally whether it's someone who's culturally different in this way or culturally different because maybe they grew up under different circumstances. Being able to sit in that without judgment and think and feel what they're thinking and feeling, and to be able to kind of wear that for a while without being uncomfortable.
The other day I was telling you about the Erasmus generation philosophy, which is something very now very typical, because this is an opportunity to get to know each other, so to build a European sense of belonging. So maybe we do prefer those Europeans more similar to us, Spanish, for instance, Portuguese, I would say also, but we do also go preferably to like UK or Northern European, like the Netherlands or Denmark institutions, not only because are very excellent universities, but because it's a very different world from ours. So this is the other way around. It's not just the fact of going abroad, it's coming back and bringing back your experience, your new feelings, thoughts about life, for instance.
By leaving the U.S. But if they cannot leave the U.S., we are a very rich and multicultural country, and so we can actually travel abroad in our own country if we choose to do so. We can travel regionally to different states, and within those different states there are many different pockets of international populations. In San Francisco we have an abundance of cultures, and so we can have that experience. We just have to be open to that experience, and so we don't necessarily have to cross borders. Borders cross our own country, and if we are open to that thought and the concept, we can apply respect to multiculturalism. We can apply the desire to understand different cultures, and we can apply communication by our willingness to learn different languages in our own country and practice those languages. Whether or not it's part of our educational system, we can choose to do that. But as educated citizens, it's up to us to also deliver that message.
Estando con las otras culturas.
Being with other cultures is how she would recommend developing intercultural competence.
Lo que pienso y en general después de mis experiencias
after her own experiences,
es que todo el mundo tiene que ir fuera de su pueblo, fuera de su país.
Go away from their country and their town.
Well, study abroad would be a great example. I know that's not always easy to do, but there are definitely a lot of different environments in the U.S. I think that people maybe don't take advantage of the experiences close by. For instance, if you're from the city going to a rural community, or from the rural community to the urban environment, you know, even little things like that, to really experience more diversity is one way they can do that.
They should study abroad. But I think even, you know, because that's a lofty goal for like every student in the country or the world, but just being able to go into a situation that's uncomfortable and be open-minded enough to ask questions and to be, you know, I think the humility piece is really important, to not think that their way is better, that they know everything, but just to be able to go in and say, you know what, I'm going to have this experience, I'm not going to judge it, I'm just going to reflect on it. And that, I mean, you can do that anywhere. You know, even in Williamsburg, you can go somewhere that it would be uncomfortable to go and have that same sense of disequilibrium, which really is a great way to build up to doing something like this, so that it's not so overwhelming that people shut down or freak out. But yeah, and I mean, that's a big part of the counseling program, especially at the master's level, to develop that. And I'm really grateful that I had opportunities to do that, because I would not have the appreciation for the things that we've been doing here had I not built up to that first.
In many ways, hopefully, learning how to behave in different contexts. How am I supposed to speak to you, and to him? So basically, leaving. There's no other way. Hanging out, making mistakes, of course. Going through probably thousands of misunderstandings. But that's a constant negotiation, basically. Mm-hmm. And mutual fascination, probably, because we might like each other or not like each other, but still being in the same communication, in the same connection.
Study abroad!